bringing right now the lead Democratic negotiator of the gun reform bill, Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut. He's been working, of course, tirelessly on new gun safety legislation for a decade. And Senator, I don't know if you dare to follow Sister Margaret or Chrissy Hines' advice and look up to the stars and be optimistic. But right now, it seems Republicans and Democrats have gotten together, at least enough Republicans, to make your dream a reality, even if it's just one step forward.
Yeah, it's a pretty significant step forward. I mean, this is the most significant anti-gun violence bill that Congress has voted on in 30 years. It's not just one change in our gun laws. It's 5 different changes, closing the boyfriend loophole to stop domestic abusers from getting guns, helping states fund red flag laws that allow them to take guns away from individuals who are threatening to hurt themselves or others. We put a de facto waiting period on purchases of guns, assault weapons, by under 21 buyers. And then we also put $15 billion into mental health and school and community safety. This is a significant piece of legislation, one of the most significant that Congress will consider this year. And as you said, it is fairly remarkable that we were able to get such a big bipartisan vote yesterday. I think that vote might get bigger over the course of the week. And it shows that ultimately democracy doesn't allow 90% of the American public to not get their way for too long. It was kind of stunning 10 years ago when a background checks bill that was supported by 90% of Americans failed. It only got a couple Republican votes. 10 years later, after we've built a movement around the issue of anti-gun violence, we now can get 14, 15, 16, 17 Republicans, a clear majority in the Senate to be able to pass bills like this that save lives. That's a significant achievement for a movement that has taken a lot of losses over the last 10 years, but now can hold their head high.
Senator, still recognizing that there's a lot more work to be done, but looking at this significant step, as you put it, what was it that you think got bipartisan support? What was it that moved the meter this time finally? One could argue you've been waiting and working for years for a day like this.
So I think when members of the Senate went home for the Memorial Day recess the week after Uvalde, they encountered parents and families and kids expressing a level of fear and anxiety that they had never seen before. That's what I witnessed in Connecticut. And when we came back from that break, there was just a sense of mission, a sense that we couldn't let these kids down, that there was just no way to let these kids continue to go to school with no hope that the laws would change to make them safer. And so I just think that the feeling that members got when they went back to their states and districts was something different than they had felt in the past. I will also give a lot of credit to the negotiators. John Cornyn and Thom Tillis on the Republican side were committed to getting results, and they were committed to staying at the table. Kyrsten Sinema was a force of nature in these negotiations. She was able to broaden our group and get more Republicans and Democrats to the table as the negotiations went on. So there was also just a lot of committed members of the Senate who helped get us to last night's big vote.
Senator, I've been traveling around the country and talking to people who are skeptical about these new laws and say, oh, well, it won't make any difference. Can you talk to them for a minute and just explain how what the bill proposes will how it will actually have an impact in real terms?
So, listen, this bill is a compromise. It doesn't go as far as I would like to go. It certainly goes further than a lot of Republicans would like it to go. But there is no doubt this bill is going to save thousands of lives. We have $750 million in this bill to help states enact red flag laws. These are laws right now, every day, that save lives in this country because they allow for police departments and courts to go in and temporarily take guns away from people who pose a threat to their community. Just, I think, last week in Connecticut, we used our law to go take guns away from a young man who was threatening to shoot up schools. That might have saved dozens of lives, but states need help implementing those laws. We give them that help. the boyfriend loophole. This is a loophole in federal law that allows for domestic abusers, men who beat up their girlfriends, to continue to own their guns. States that have closed that loophole show that there's a 10% reduction in the number of intimate partners who are killed in gun homicides. That's now a national law after we pass this bill. That'll save lives. And then just the mental health spending in this bill. It's not a small amount of money. We're actually building out a brand new system of community health centers with funding in this bill targeted towards underserved areas. That's going to save thousands of lives in and of itself, separate from the gun provision. So this is a substantial piece of life-saving legislation. No, it's not everything that I want. But I'm going to tell you, once we show Republicans that there is more political gain than harm in voting for things like this, it's going to open up a lot of more possibilities in the future.
Senator, we just put up a listing of the elements of this crime bill. You just addressed some of them. But one in specific is it clarifies who is considered a gun seller. Does this mean that gun shows off the back of pickup trucks in Virginia and North Carolina, where people go and load up on guns and put them in the trunks of their cars and come up the New Jersey Turnpike to New York and Hartford and places in the north? What does it do? Who's a gun seller and who isn't under this legislation?
So this is probably the least talked about provision in this law, but it's going to be, I think, impactful. In one of the mass shootings in Texas, a mentally ill individual who would have been barred from buying a gun by the background check system went online and found a seller on arms list who would sell him guns without a background check. Why? Because that seller, even though he was selling dozens of guns a year, or over a dozen guns a year, was not licensed as a federal dealer and thus was not required to do background checks. What we do in this legislation is clarify that somebody like that, who is selling 10 or more guns a year for profit online, is a gun dealer, needs to be licensed, and needs to conduct background checks. And so my belief is that that provision alone is going to cause thousands of more gun sales in this country to go through the background check system. That could have saved lives in the Odessa mass shooting. It can prevent a lot of mass shootings in the future.